Imagine, just for a second, that you are standing in a nameless, scorching desert. The heat is literally radiating off the sand in these visible waves, right? And there's absolutely nothing around you for miles, just emptiness. Then, suddenly, the radio earpiece you're wearing crackles to life with a familiar, chilling phrase. Eagle is moving. It's a phrase that instantly signals things are getting real. The stakes are incredibly high. But here's the thing about your situation. You aren't protecting a president. There's no flag patched onto your shoulder. You're not flashing a government badge. Actually, you're wearing a patch for a company that officially doesn't even exist. You, my friend, are a completely untraceable asset for a shadow corporation, standing in the middle of nowhere, protecting a guy whose wealth is just as invisible as your own identity. Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to the secretive, highly lucrative world of the Private Military Contractor, or PMC. Basically, a PMC is a private corporation that provides armed combat or security services. They operate as the shadow state's deniable assets. In this life, you aren't a soldier answering to a nation. You're a corporate asset. Today, in this explainer, we are going to climb the terrifying corporate ladder of the PMC underworld, exploring every single rank, from the absolute bottom rung all the way up to the CEO pulling the strings and moving the world's blood money. Let's start at the bottom. Level 1, the static guard. This is where the journey begins. Down here, the industry bluntly calls you a local nobody. You've got a clean military discharge and a mortgage back home that, well, simply won't pay itself. You're essentially acting as a scarecrow in a uniform, stationed outside some dusty gravel pit or a totally remote mining facility. And you're doing this for 16 hours a day? 16? Can you imagine the agonizing, mind-numbing boredom? You're just standing there in blistering heat, chugging terrible coffee, waiting for the clock to run out. You're not there for high-octane combat. You're literally just there so the corporate insurance company doesn't hike the rates on the local assets. You probably tell yourself it's just a one-time thing, right? Just a temporary gig to stack some cash before going back to normal life. But then, that first envelope arrives. And wow, when you compare normal grunt pay to PMC hazard pay, the difference is absolutely staggering. I mean, that first envelope of hazard pay holds more cash than you made in an entire year as a regular soldier. Suddenly, the cynical math of the whole operation starts making complete sense. You rationalize the grueling hours, the bad coffee, the isolation, because the payout is just way too massive to walk away from. You're hooked. Which brings us to level 2, the high-threat operator. Once you prove you can actually keep your mouth shut, you escalate to this next tier. You become what's known as a gray man, executing highly deniable missions for Fortune 500 companies right in the middle of active war zones. Now, to survive this, you gotta master running SDRs, surveillance detection routes. Picture yourself navigating through these intensely crowded markets in places like Kabul or Bogota, constantly checking your mirrors, making absolutely sure no one is tracking your convoy. You learn to read a room like a seasoned Secret Service agent. Step 1, you learn to trust that weird tingle of wrongness. Step 2, you spot the guy across the street whose hands are staying in his pockets just a little too long. Step 3, you notice the nondescript car that has followed you for exactly 3 turns. At this level, you're moving product. Sometimes it's VIPs, and sometimes it's crates of mysterious import-export goods that you are explicitly told not to ask about. So, you don't. But here is the brutal reality of this tier summed up in one chilling phrase. Replaced means dead. In this highly specialized world, as a gray man operator, making a mistake isn't a firing offense, it is fatal. If you fail to spot the threat, you don't get a bad performance review from HR, you get replaced. You are forced to become the absolute most efficient, hyper-vigilant version of yourself simply to stay alive. Moving up the ladder, we hit level 3, the team leader. If you actually survive the groundwork, you transition into the middle management tier of this shadow world. By now, honestly, your body is starting to break down from way too many parachute landings and violent concussions. So you aren't pulling the trigger anymore. Instead, you're sitting in a nice hotel room, eating room service, managing a crew of 8 ghosts who are out there handling violent problems for the corporation. And here's what's really interesting. To survive this psychologically, you adopt a completely clinical language. Brutal murders on the ground are sanitized in your reports as cleanings. Illegal bribes handed to local officials? Oh, those are just consulting fees. And human lives are coldly reduced to disposable assets. You've basically become the essential bridge between the bloody violence happening on the streets and the clean suits sitting safely in the boardroom. But with this cushy middle management gig comes extreme, overwhelming paranoia. You know way too much now, so you start building what operators call the vault. This is your ultimate insurance policy. You hoard every single encrypted message, every illegal order, and every piece of dirty laundry you've ever received from the higher-ups. Why? Because you have seen exactly what happens to fixers who know too much and forget to protect themselves. In this business, if you don't have leverage, you vanish, literally. Finally, we reach the apex. Level 4, the CEO. At the absolute top of the ladder, the world is cold, it is calculated, and it is completely removed from the dirt and the blood. You definitely don't wear a uniform anymore. You're rocking a $5,000 suit, and you're moving $80 billion. Let that number sink in. That is the massive, almost incomprehensible scale of the black budget money you control. You provide the ultimate premium service for dictators and oligarchs around the globe who need their private armies funded, and they need it done without leaving a single paper trail. You are the guy who makes that happen. To build and maintain this massive empire, you rely on a super complex web of shell companies in Delaware and trusts in the Cayman Islands. At this level, you aren't fighting wars anymore, you're optimizing them. You've become a literal force of nature. You are reshaping entire cities and buying corrupt governments with nothing more than a signature and a cleverly structured corporate entity. It is quite literally warfare conducted via spreadsheet. But it all leads to this: a prison of your making, the true cost. You sit at the very top of this hierarchy. You're worth $750 million. But you look around and realize you are utterly and completely alone. Because the terrifying, unavoidable final truth of the PMC formula is exactly this: the past always catches up. Always. Despite all that incredible wealth, despite the massive shadow empire you've built across the globe, no one ever truly escapes the consequences of their rise to the top. The bodies you stepped over, the governments you destabilized, it all remains a part of you. So it leaves us with this chilling question. Can you survive in the places where the blood never washes off? It's a heavy thought to chew on today. If you want to see more deep dives into these shadow states and the hidden systems that secretly run our world, make sure to subscribe to The Explainer. We're dedicated to making these complex, hidden corporate structures totally understandable and visible to you. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next Explainer.